So we already talked a little bit in class about this idea of manifest destiny that came about in the 1840s. So prior to manifest destiny, we know that there's already this westward expansion that's going on in the United States. We have this new acquired territory from the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, and people are starting to want to move and spread out throughout the country. But this idea of manifest destiny is going to take that to an entirely new level. So it's going to make these settlers in the United States feel that they have this God-given right, this inevitable opportunity, and that they really they need to basically spread themselves out on the entire North American continent. So rather than just getting this land, they need this land, and they need all of the land on the North American continent in order to complete the United States. So this is going to cause a lot of controversy and a lot of new acquired territory during this time period where James Polk is the president. So there are a few different reasons for this feeling of manifest destiny that's exploding during this time period, towards the middle of the 19th century. But one really big reason for this need and this want to spread across the United States and go more to the west is the fact that there's overpopulation in the urban northern part of the eastern United States and really just in the eastern part of the United States in general. So when we look at one big reason that there's this overpopulation in urban places such as the cities, you're going to see that immigration is going to be something that's exploding during this time. You have a lot of people pouring into the United States from European nations, and two really important key European people that are pouring into the United States are the Irish and the Germans. So the reason that the Irish were pouring into the United States was because they're going through something called the potato famine in Ireland. And this is really tragic for these Irish people because potatoes were like the end all be all center crop of their existence. They ate pounds of it a day. They needed it to live and to survive economically and just for the fact that they needed to be fed and have this energy to do work. And they weren't able to do that when they were starving from this potato famine. So overall, I'm not going to go into the whole science of what happened to the potato at this time, but it was completely unedible. They couldn't harvest it, they couldn't sell it, they couldn't eat it, and they needed to get out of this situation before it was sudden death for them. So from the years of 1845 to 1852, this famine was going on. 1 to 2 million people are going to leave Ireland, coming to other nations such as the United States and come to the continent of North America. There's going to be over 1 million deaths from this. So the people that are going to escape are going to pour into the United States and set up home here and live here permanently. So you're going to see that they're going to come into these cities, these port cities that are going to become really urbanized and overcrowded. They typically are going to be unskilled workers facing a lot of discrimination because they only can work in these low paying jobs. So although these Irish people came to North America to escape this potato famine, you're going to see that they don't have the easiest lifestyle once they reach the United States. And then on the other hand, you're going to see Germans also pouring into the United States during this time, but for an entirely different reason. And they're going to be treated a lot differently than the Irish during this time. So Germans are going to be coming to the United States because of democratic revolutions in Germany in 1848. They're having issues with their own government, and you're going to see that the rebels are going to feel that they need to evacuate Germany and look for other opportunity. And the industrialization in the United States is going to be appealing for a lot of these Germans. So you're going to see that the rebels are going to come to North America and be a lot more accepted in the United States than the Irish in the United States. So they're going to live in cities, but some of them are going to be skilled farmers who are also able to go to the heartland. More of the agricultural lifestyle they're able to accommodate to. So there's skilled workers, there's farmers. You're going to see a lot of teachers, doctors, lawyers, editors, really important educated jobs that are going to be a lot more respected than some of the jobs that the Irish were placed into. And you're also going to see that the Germans are going to be aligned with a lot of the reform movements that are exploding during this time that we talked about when we talked about 1836 to 1844. So you're going to see that these Germans are really big on education and the abolition movement, and they're even going to bring big innovations such as kindergarten and adding to this new public school ideals that are popping up in the United States. So you're going to see a lot of contributions from the Germans, but you're also going to see a lot of contributions from the Irish as well, although the Irish face a lot more discrimination than the Germans do. So in the election of 1844, you're going to see Henry Clay pop up as the Whig candidate once again. He's going to face off against James K. Polk, who's going to be the Democratic nominee. So this election's pretty weird because James K. Polk was really not going to be a presidential candidate. No one really assumed he was. So during this time period, Andrew Jackson is still a really pivotal, important figure in politics, and he has his hopes placed on Martin Van Buren's reelection. We know that Martin Van Buren took a lot of heat for the Panic of 1837, and he wasn't able to get that reelection, but he ends up wanting to run again, and this doesn't work out. This doesn't end up coming to the light, so you're going to see the first dark horse candidate, which means that this is the first candidate that no one really expected to come out and get the victory. So James Polk is going to basically come out of nowhere and win this election, and he's going to win this election based on his slogan, 54, 40, or fight. So this entire slogan is based on expansion. This is talking about things like the Oregon Territory and how he wants to expand the country through places like Texas and California. He is completely dead set on expanding these territories, whereas Henry Clay keeps switching his positions back and forth, whether he wants to annex Texas, whether he wants to really devote himself to this westward expansion. So you're going to see that really Martin Van Buren kind of falling off the wagon here, and then Henry Clay switching up what he wanted to do so many times and confusing the voters is going to lead to the first dark horse candidate who's going to pretty much come out of nowhere and win this election, and that's going to be the Democratic nominee, James Polk. So you're going to see within this election, there's going to be a lot of mudslinging. People aren't really able to find a lot of dirt on Polk because he carries himself pretty well. In the eyes of the public, but there's going to be a lot of mudslinging thrown at Henry Clay, and this is going to hurt his election again and really destroy his chances of winning another election. And in the end, you're going to see that Polk's going to win this with 170 electoral votes, and Clay is going to lose the presidential election once again with 105 electoral votes. So we talked in class a lot about how Mexico got their independence from Spain, and a lot of the territories in North America that Manifest Destiny made really appealing to the people in the United States still belong to Mexico. And one of these really big territories that the United States and James Polk and a lot of presidents before him had their eyes set on is Texas. And we know it as our second biggest state now. It was pretty much a huge deal, and Texas is going to be kind of hanging in the balance for a while in the beginning half and pretty much towards the middle of the 19th century. So when Mexico won its independence from Spain in 1821, Texas is going to become part of Mexico. But eventually, Texas is going to become weary of the situation and they're really going to fight and want their independence. So the reason that they're going to want their independence so badly is because Mexico is going to allow organized immigration from the United States into Texas. And you're going to see that this is going to create a weird balance that gets thrown off in Texas. So eventually, you're going to see that the Americans, the United States citizens, are going to start to outweigh those Tejanos, those people who lived in Texas who were under Mexican rule, those Mexican people living in Texas. And this is going to create a weird balance because the people that are living in Texas who are US citizens are not going to follow the rules that Mexico sets in place for those people who immigrate to Texas. So this is going to create a lot of controversy. And overall, Texas is going to want to declare itself an independent nation. But they're really not able to do this until the Texas Revolution. So the Texas Revolution is basically when Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna realizes that there's this strain and this traction going on in Texas and that they're going to end up declaring independence and fighting back. So he is going to be sent to stop Texas from doing this. He's going to send 6,000 troops to destroy the Alamo. And this is going to be a really drastic, horrifying loss for the people in Texas during this time. But overall, you're going to see Texas coming out on top, making General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna really bow down here and say, I'll give you Texas, I'll surrender Texas. So overall, you're going to see that Texas is going to become the Republic of Texas in 1836 or the Lone Star Republic. So they're pretty much going to be their own country from 1836 or their own territory from 1836 to 1845 until the United States makes Texas a state in 1845. But you're going to see that Mexico is still not going to recognize this fact. They're not going to accept Texas as state from the United States until after the Mexican-American War has concluded and Mexico loses the war to the US. So the Lone Star Republic is really going to be standing on its own after it declares independence from Mexico for a few years. So we talked a lot about this idea of manifest destiny and the fact that it wasn't just James Polk who wanted people in the United States to have this God-given right to spread across the entire North American continent. This was a general feeling in the air, and this was actually the reason that James Polk was able to pull out the victory and be the first dark horse candidate, was because he really fed into this idea of manifest destiny and that the United States needed to spread out. So this was really a big deal, and this was the precursor and the reason for the Mexican-American War. So if you can look at this map over here, you can see that this green territory, this land in green, is going to be the land that already belongs to the United States, that the United States has already acquired. And you can see that this Mexican territory, which ends up being, before the war, is going to be this red and this striped and then this blue. But the United States is really certain that we want to acquire this land that's in the stripe. This is the disputed territory that the United States really wants from Mexico, and they're not willing to back down on that issue. So President James K. Polk is going to do something about this. Mexico and the United States are already really at odds. Mexico's already really irked and annoyed that Texas was lost and that they ended up declaring their independence and then moving forward, even joining the United States after they declare their independence. So these deals and these propositions that James Polk really puts out there for Mexico are going to be denied, and it's not going to go over well. So Polk is going to send troops to occupy a disputed area of the Texas and Mexico border after the fact that Mexico denied a $30 million offer for California and New Mexico. So after Mexico denies this offer for all of this money for this territory, Polk is going to take that next step and send the troops to occupy this disputed area. And a lot of people would say that Polk did this because he wanted to provoke a war. At this point, Mexico did not have the resources, they did not have the army that the United States did or the manpower. So Polk, a lot of people would say that it was inevitable that this war was going to happen, and it was even encouraged once they realized that they could not get the land peacefully with the $30 million offer. Then you're going to see that there is going to be this aggression that happens as a result of Polk sending these troops, and there is going to be bloodshed, and this is going to be the beginning of the war, the Mexican-American War, that's going to occur from 1846 to 1848. So overall, and I don't want to go too much into the Mexican-American War because obviously this week we're going to watch a documentary on it, which is going to give an hour and a half awesome view of the entire war. But all in all, Mexico was unprepared for this war and they end up losing. So after this war, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is signed in 1848, and overall, it's going to cede 1/3 of all the Mexican territory to the United States. So if you look at this map here, you're going to see that the territory ceded by Mexico after this war, this blue territory right here, and the disputed territory that's in the stripes is going to go to the United States. This is going to be important territory such as Utah, California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. So this is going to be a big land grab for the United States, and a big deal when it comes to fulfilling this manifest destiny. So while this entire controversy was going on between Mexico and the United States, beginning this Mexican-American War, you're also going to see sort of a rebellion going on in California, and this entire situation looks a little shady. So June 14th, 1846, you're going to see something called the Bear Flag Revolt. So overall, you're going to see that the political situation was tense, like we talked about, between Mexico and the United States, and there's rumors floating around in California that there is this impending war. We talked about it before. During this time period, there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, so people didn't know what was going on between the two nations and that there was this war that was erupting. So there was really just rumors floating around in California. And you're going to see a man named John C. Fremont arriving at Sutter's Fort in California with a small corps of soldiers. And the question there is going to be, was he encouraged to go there and start this rebellion by James K. Polk? And this is going to be a big question on whether this was constitutional, whether this was allowed. But overall, his visit at Sutter's Fort is going to encourage a party of more than 30 Americans under the leadership of William Ide and Ezekiel Merritt to invade the Mexican outpost of Sonoma in California. So this is really going to lead to a bloodless confrontation. So basically, this is going to be resolved easily, and California is going to declare itself an independent republic. And these people that are going to declare this and really fight for this idea that California should be independent are going to be called bear flaggers. And if you look at the California flag, you can see that it's really their symbol, this star and this bear that they put on this new independent flag that we still see around today. But, although this is the general feeling in the air and that they want to be part of the United States, and there's a lot of people settled there that feel this way and want to leave Mexico and come to the United States, you're not going to see California officially becoming a state until 1850. So we talked in an earlier slide about the election of 1844 and how James K. Polk was really this dark horse candidate who no one thought was going to win this presidential election. No one even thought he was going to be a candidate, but he won. And a big reason he won was because his slogan was 54, 40, or fight. And this really talked about a boundary that James Polk thought that he could establish in this Oregon territory that would give the United States more land. And everything really feeds into this manifest destiny feeling in the air at this time, and this is definitely one of those things. So we talked about it before and in previous, units and chapters that the United States and Britain were in this constant controversy that kept happening over and over again over the Oregon territory, and we're going to see that happening a lot. And these borderlines are just going to keep being reestablished. But it's also important to realize, this Oregon territory, it was not just the state of Oregon that we see now. It was composed of really important lands like modern day Oregon, Idaho, Washington, and parts of Canada. So Polk was going to use all of this land and what it had to offer as the basis to campaign for the presidential election and say that, it's important that the United States is able to expand this boundary line up until the 54-40 line. And ultimately, he really didn't need this much land, and he really wasn't dead set on getting this much land, but he was able to threaten war and kind of scare the crap out of Britain and the country a little bit. And he did this really just as a facade, and it ended up working out really well because Polk ended up deciding in the end that, war wasn't going to happen. Britain decided that war wasn't necessary, and the Oregon Treaty was decided on June 18th, 1846. And this was super important because this would establish the border at the 49th parallel. So if you can look on this map right here, you can see this dotted line. This was going to be the line that separated the land. So prior to this, there really wasn't even close to being this much land in the Oregon Territory for the United States. But now you're going to see a lot of new land coming into the United States. This is going to feed into this idea of manifest destiny and this threat that James K. Polk is going to put out there about war and all of this armed conflict between Britain and the United States if they aren't able to get this land. This was a really risky move, and it ended up really paying off because now we have this land today. So California wasn't really a hop and bustling place before gold was found in 1848. So gold was sort of found while California belonged to Mexico and only Mexican people really primarily lived there, but it wasn't found in the way it was found in the 1840s that made California explode as this hub of opportunity. So in 1848, James W. Marshall is going to discover gold while building a sawmill at Sutter's Mill. So Sutter's Mill belonged to John Sutter, and John Sutter was an immigrant who came to California because he really wanted to build this empire in California. He was already affluent, but he wanted to make his wealth explode, and he thought that an influx of people coming to California would assist him in that journey. But I don't think that he ever imagined that his property would be the hub for the beginning of the gold rush, and James W. Marshall is really going to uncover that. But this could have been an isolated incident and gave, James W. Marshall and John Sutter the opportunity to really take this wealth for themselves. But unfortunately, word got out and everyone knew about this. People are going to pour in from all over the United States. People are going to make the dangerous journey to California from all over the United States and actually all over the world. And these people who are going to make this journey across the United States to get to this gold and to get to this opportunity are going to be called 49ers. And this is going to be the nickname that is going to start the name of the sports team as well. This is going to be a big deal. And these people are going to be super spirited people who are going to basically chase the opportunity. And you're going to see that it's really taking a risk. This is all about luck because a lot of these people are going to make this journey. They're going to uproot their lives. They're going to go through all these dangerous conditions and basically start their lives over and hope for something that could not happen. And a lot of the times, the businesses who were going to sell these 49ers the materials to search for the gold would often make more money than those who actually searched for it. So a lot of these people would end up empty handed and have to go home. But a lot of these people were going to make money from the industry of helping these 49ers look for the gold. The California gold rush is going to greatly change the spirit in America. People are going to be digging up California, exploiting the land. The land is going to look, pretty destroyed after a lot of this. As you can tell from the map on the bottom, there's a ton of different locations where gold was dug up, and one can only imagine what this is going to do to a place. So you're going to see a lot of that happening, and you're going to see a lot of wealth come about. You're going to see a lot of, people leave empty-handed, kind of angry about this situation. So the California Gold Rush is going to be a really pivotal event in the Manifest Destiny time period. Okay, so the Oregon Trail was not something that happened overnight. The Oregon Trail was going to happen for a few decades, from about the 1840s to the 1860s, and this is going to basically be an action that sums up the entire spirit of Manifest Destiny. So you're going to see people taking a journey that's up to 2,000 miles, hundreds and thousands of people making this journey. 1 in 17 people not even making this journey because they want to follow this manifest destiny. They want to be able to spread across the North American continent. They want to go from the east and they want to explore these lands all the way in the west. They want to take their wagons and they want to head to places like Utah, California, Oregon, and other Western territories that they feel could be very good for opportunity and other things like that. So you're going to see that Independence, Missouri is going to become this starting point. A lot of people are going to leave from here and go towards Oregon. And this is going to be a pretty long journey, pretty dangerous, but they're going to do it for a few reasons. And this is going to be appealing to so many Americans for a few reasons. So first things first, you're going to see the Oregon Trail being so appealing because of economic opportunity. There's going to be opportunity for new land, a new agrarian lifestyle, new industry that could pop up over in that direction. They want to escape from things. They want to get rid of disease that's happening in these really urbanized, overpopulated areas on the eastern side of the United States. They want to escape from the slavery issues that's constantly plaguing the country and making the North and the South fight each other. They want to have religious freedom. They want to be able to do their missionary work and really be able to convert these Native Americans, which was a life goal of a lot of these people. They wanted to escape the overcrowding and a lot of the immigration that was pouring into the United States. They wanted to escape their debt and be able to rebuild themselves economically. And they also wanted to be able to control this land. So they had all this land, they had this idea, this manifest destiny that they really wanted to be able to, bring to light, but they needed to be able to control this land. And in order to do that, you needed Americans to be living on it. So this was something that was really appealing to them. But like anything in history, it's not always, sunshines and rainbows because there were some difficulties that happened as a result of the Oregon Trail. So it had really rough geography out west. It wasn't so easy to get from one place to the next. We know that the eastern side of the United States at this point is industrialized. You have a lot of transportation, but out west, it's not so perfect. So you're going to see a lot of rough geography that's going to make travel pretty difficult. You're going to see an unpredictable climate that's a lot different than what people expect in the eastern part of the United States. You're going to run out of supplies eventually because this is over a 2,000-mile journey for some people. There's going to be disease that follows a lot of these people to the western part of the United States, such as smallpox, which is going to wipe out entire wagon trains full of people. There's going to be Indian attacks because we have to keep in mind with all of this expansion that's going on during this time period and during the entire 19th century, these native people still resided on this land a whole lot longer than these white settlers. So you're going to see a lot of those disputes. You're going to see bandit attacks, animal attacks, and accidents that wouldn't typically have happened on the eastern part of the United States. So it's going to be rather an uncomfortable journey for these people who aren't used to the western part of the United States, but it's going to be a journey that's worthwhile for a lot of people because they're able to fulfill this manifest destiny idea.